Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. So today I'm going to be doing the cleanup work of this little Swage block we forged there in those other two videos. So this will be the final bit in the series of forging your own Swage block. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. If you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, you should go back and check them out. Part 1's labeled part 1, forging a Swage block. Part 2 is actually me forging the Swage block. The first part is me making the tooling, so I just labeled that as forging a Swage block. And then, obviously you are on to part 3. So part 3, we're going to clean this little beauty up. Now, do you need to clean this up? No, you do not. You can actually leave it just the way it is, and you can work on it, although it may be a little bit crude. Now, however, I am going to go ahead and clean it up because I want to clean up all these grooves and get everything just a little more exacting, radius off some of these sharp edges, as you can see here. Hopefully you can see these little sharp edges. I want to go ahead and smooth some of that off, things like that, to take and get this block cleaned up. Also, so you can see all the little inconsistencies in the surface finish and things like that. Now that is because I had some Damascus that I was fooling around with, and I put a crud load of flux on it, and it really ate out the forge lining on the bottom of the forge, and it's kind of created like a glassy kind of pool of flux that this block was laying in, and you guys can see the result of that there. So I just want to clean that up so it looks better. It looks a heck of a lot better. One of the questions that I got was, is this Swage block being made out of high carbon tool steel? I got that by John Switzer at Black Bear Forge. Was this being made out of a tool steel? And the tools that I used to make this, were those out of any sort of notable grade of steel? The answer to that question is no. These were bought at the scrapyard. They're assumed all to be mild steel. I do believe this is definitely mild steel, and it doesn't have to be anything, because if you look at main factory produced Swage blocks, none of them are high carbon steel. They're all ductile iron. So they're all soft iron anyhow, and so mild steel's a step up than ductile iron. So that's what this is made out of. Just your standard A36 or 1018, whichever this one was. It was just a plain chunk of steel from the scrapyard that I'm working with here. Now, that is perfectly acceptable. You do not need high carbon steels, things of that nature, to do type of forming things, because once again, you got to remember, you're going to be bringing out all your material hot and be putting hot material into a cold block. It's not going to deform unless it gets hot, and then it's going to start having some wear. High carbon tool steels are going to provide better wear resistance against hammering and things like that. Now, on the tools that I use, the fullers and things to hammer into to take and make these, those are going to wear out pretty quick, because once again, you're hammering on them. So you're hammering on the top side, that's going to kind of mushroom out and eventually be no good. Also on the smaller fullers, like what you see here, they had a tendency, these smaller fuller lines, they have a tendency when you hammer on mild steel to just warp and distort, because they get heated up by the block of steel, and therefore they start warping and distorting, and those are usually just kind of a one-time use tool. If you're going to be making a bunch of these, invest into good tool steel to make these different tools once. As you know, in my shop, I use mild steel a lot in this scenario. So, without further ado, let me shut on up and let's get to grinding on this thing. But before we're going to grind, we're going to go ahead and throw this thing in the pickle and let it pickle out. And that'll help loosen a lot of the surface scale and the material on there and really clean it down to the bare bones metal. This way it's not so hard on the abrasives. We can grind all the block off with a good hard stone, and then we'll switch to flat discs and get it rolling here. So thank you all for watching this video. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it, and let's get to it. Okie doke, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, down here in the bottom. This is now officially the next day. I took and decided I would take and do some other things besides film this video. I did that little time lapse there to just put it in the pickle. But here's what we're working with here. I'm going to have to heat this back up to get this unfroze, to end up getting this piece out of here. But the block is in here. We're going to get it cleaned up with a wire wheel first. Well, first we're going to dry it off with some shop towels. And then we're going to clean it up with a wire wheel first, just so we can get all the excess scale off of it. And once we get all that little excess, lightweight scale and things, the stuff that wasn't able to be removed with the pickle, we're going to go ahead and then just grind that off. So I will do all that in time-lapse mode because this is just kind of like a long, boring process. And, we will just continue to voice this over. But I hope you guys are liking the video so far. And we're getting closer to finishing this puppy up. So stick with me, and we'll be right back with you here in just a little bit. And here we are. So first step here, we're just going to clean all this up with a wire wheel. Now at this stage, everything looks pretty clean, looks pretty nice. Once you do some wire wheeling to things like this, it looks like your classical blacksmith tool, if you will. But the reason why I wire wheel first is it helps highlight all the areas of inconsistency that I want to grind out. And now you can see me using this great big giant, angle grinder here. This is a Bosch angle grinder. I'll try to put some links in the description of this particular one here for you if you're interested. I've done some tool reviews before on these. This is a pretty slick trick, especially if you're going to work any large surfaces of material like this that you need to do a lot of cleaning up on. The main part of this swedge block that I wanted to work on was the back side. That's the part that has pretty much all the really bad fire scale damage on the back side of it. But everything on the front side looks pretty darn good. So I didn't actually touch the front any at all. And all I did was clean up all the little grooves here. This in total took about 25 to about 30 minutes to do. And like I said, this part's optional. But yeah, other than that, we're just radiusing off the edges a little bit. And we'll be right back with you. It'll be interesting to see what this thing weighs. Okay, everyone, here we are. This is the final product. So I smoothed off all the edges, like I said in the video, and I cleaned up all the faces. The only thing I didn't do is clean up these depressions. Now, these depressions, you can't tell it on camera. These are already really smooth, and so I didn't feel there was a need to disturb those and grind those out. Also, since they had a little bit of suck down of material into them, this outer edge is fairly rounded or radiused already. So those are the only things that I did not take and grind. Now we're going to go ahead and check the weight. If you all remember, we started with 10 pounds, 13 ounces of material, just a little over that. What we're going to do now is we're going to see how much we lost to scale and grinding. Now, you always lose quite a bit of material on these things, on big chunks of steel, a little bit more than you might think. So here we go. We've got our meter here. We're going to set that off to this side. Hopefully you guys can see that just fine. All right, and we're going to go ahead and lift. Yep, just like I said. Look at that number right there. So you definitely lose quite a bit of volume. That is 9 pounds, 7.5 ounces, or 7.5 ounces. 9 pounds, 7.5 ounces. So I'll go ahead and put the difference of those two up somewhere right in here so you guys can check that out. But as you can tell, starting at 10 pounds, 13 ounces, to now 9 pounds, 7.5 ounces, grinding and the scale removal really does make a difference on these. I had to do quite a bit of grinding on the back side to get that nice and flush and flat. Not too much grinding in the grooves and stuff. I wanted to keep it as close to forge finish as I could. But there you are. So there's the weight difference. Still quite a heavy chunk of steel. Now, for the last part of this, I'm going to actually heat this thing up to about a dull red in temperature color. And I'm going to drop it in a bucket of motor oil outside the shop. So this way it gets kind of a seasoned finish. And we're going to go ahead and do that next. Okay, everyone, here we go. We're going to go in for the quench. Let that go in there and let it sit a while. It'll be kind of a pain to get back out of there since I dropped it. But we'll try to get it fueled up here. There we go. You want to do this outdoors, so this way, if there's ever a fire, it's outside your shop, and all that smoke is not healthy for you to breathe in. So let the wind draft it. There we go. Get this nice and coated. Roy's secret goop. Somebody asked me if my slack tub is as nasty as my quench bucket and oil. The answer to that is yes, just every bit as nasty. There you go, you can see that really frying on there. That gives it a really good dark look to it. That's what we're wanting. That should protect it from quite a bit of rusting that it may or may not get. Now this is a mild steel block, so it's not going to harden to any degree with oil. This is just to provide a protectant of the steel. One of the other things you could do is you could do a boiled linseed oil as well. I don't know the flash point on that and how well that would work on this particular application, but it actually might work pretty nice. So there we are, nice and done. Alright, well, that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. And be looking for this and other project videos coming soon. Thank you all for watching. Like I always say, God bless you, and we'll catch you on the next one.